man is behind bars after fatally shooting a woman during a verbal dispute at a Sonic restaurant. At 7:09 p.m. on Friday the 30th of June, authorities responded to 713 North Main Street in Belen, New Mexico, on reports of shots fired in a parking lot of a fast food eatery. When officers arrived, they found a woman with a single gunshot wound to her chest. Officers attempted life-saving measures on the woman, however she died at the scene due to her injuries. The victim was identified as 46-year-old Lisa Swift-Bird. Belen Police Department Chief James Harris said it appears to be an ongoing family issue of some kind. We believe that the shooter was actually in the line at the Sonic at the time of the shooting. James said the suspect, identified as Donald Lewis, fled the scene after the shooting but returned a short time later. He was arrested and charged with murder, and is held at the Valencia County Detention Center without bond. The investigation into the matter continues. Authorities are investigating after a 19-year-old woman was fatally shot while driving her SUV. At around 4:30 p.m. on Monday the 26th of June, authorities responded to a call of shots fired at 19th and 4th Streets in Niagara Falls, New York, followed by a report of a two-vehicle collision. Investigators said it appears that the female driver of the blue Chevy Avalanche, who was identified as Mackenzie Munt, veered into a red minivan. They said Mackenzie, who was driving down 19th Street, lost control of the vehicle after being shot in the head. She was rushed to the Niagara Falls Memorial Medical Center in a critical condition and was stabilized before being transported to the Erie County Medical Center in Buffalo, where she remained on life support. Investigators said the driver of the minivan was treated for minor injuries and was not involved in the shooting. On Thursday the 29th of June, Mackenzie was taken off life support and died a short time later. Authorities have not named any suspects or made any arrests in the shooting and are continuing to investigate the matter. 50-year-old Connie Denise Bethia is behind bars for fatally shooting her husband. At just before midnight on Friday the 30th of June, authorities responded to a home in Methodist Church Road in Marion, South Carolina on reports of shots fired. When officers arrived, they went inside the premises and found Antonio Bethia in a critical condition, suffering from a gunshot wound. He was taken to the MUSC Marion Emergency Department for medical treatment, but was pronounced dead shortly thereafter. Connie was identified as a suspect in the shooting, and she was arrested at the scene. She's charged with murder as well as possession of a weapon during a violent crime, and is held at the Marion County Detention Center. It's unclear what events led up to the shooting, as the investigation into the matter continues. A 25-year-old man has been arrested after the remains of a 56-year-old man who went missing more than 2 weeks ago have been found stuffed in a barrel floating in a South Carolina lake in Cherokee County. At around 1:45 p.m. on Thursday the 29th of June, authorities found a barrel near the shore of Lake Thickety in a small town of Gaffney, and upon opening it, they found human remains which appeared to have been in the container for a number of days. The Cherokee County coroner identified the remains to be that of Jeffrey Supfin, who had a prosthetic right leg, and was reportedly last seen leaving a business in Chesney on the 15th of June. After speaking to a person of interest, investigators determined that Jeffrey died in neighbouring Spartanburg County. Deputies in Cherokee County arrested Eric Sean Fetzer and charged him with destruction, desecration or removal of human remains. Authorities said they expect additional arrests in the near future as the investigation into the matter continues. A 31-year-old man is behind bars after confessing to fatally shooting a 41-year-old man after an argument. At just before 9:30 a.m. on Sunday the 2nd of July, authorities responded to an apartment complex at 2101 West Grand Avenue in Clovis, New Mexico, on reports of shots fired. When officers arrived, they entered an apartment and found Ruben Morales unresponsive with a gunshot wound to his chest, and his girlfriend 23-year-old Destiny Pahia applying pressure on the wound with a t-shirt. Medics attempted life-saving measures and transported Ruben to Plains Regional Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead. Police learned that the suspect had fled the scene before they arrived. Destiny told investigators that Ruben and a Hispanic man that she did not know entered her apartment arguing amongst themselves. She told police that the yelling got louder, and the unidentified man pulled out a gun and shot Ruben. Destiny told police that she had only seen the shooter one other time with Ruben. As police searched the scene, they found an identification card inside the t-shirt that was used to apply pressure to Ruben's wound. The ID belonged to Jesse Ruers, who was on probation with the Clovis Adult Probation Office for a felony aggravated assault. Officers were able to track Jesse's movements through the GPS ankle monitor he was wearing, and located him less than a mile away at 308 North Reed Street. The officers were able to use the GPS to confirm that Jesse had been at the scene of the shooting. During questioning, he told police the shooting was an accident. He said he had a relationship with Destiny and was at her apartment when Ruben stormed in to confront the couple. Jesse told police that Ruben was cussing him out and started to rush him to fight him. He told police that he grabbed a gun from a nightstand and shot Ruben. Jesse said the gun belonged to Destiny and that he left it at the scene before leaving to go to a friend's house to burn the clothes he was wearing during the shooting. Jesse was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, tampering with evidence and possession of a firearm by a felon. He's held at the Curry County Adult Detention Center without bail. The investigation into the matter continues. A 34-year-old man who was suspected of domestic violence fatally shot a police officer in a hospital before being killed by other officers. The incident occurred at just before 1 a.m. on Monday the 3rd of July at Perry County Memorial Hospital in Tell City, Indiana. Police were called to the scene when a female victim was able to make it to the hospital to be treated for her injuries and told hospital staff that her abuser Sean Hubert was on his way. When Sean arrived inside the hospital, 47-year-old Sergeant Heather Glenn tried to subdue the domestic abuse suspect with an electronic device in order to arrest him, but it was ineffective. During a brief struggle, Sean produced a firearm and shot Heather. Police then returned fire and shot Sean. Heather and Sean were both treated at the scene, however they died from their injuries. Heather spent nearly 20 years with the Tell City Police Department and the Perry County Sheriff's Office. The investigation is ongoing and an autopsy has been scheduled. A 37-year-old woman was recently arrested following the death of a toddler who died early this year from injuries sustained while in her care. The investigation, which began on the 26th of April, revealed that the 15-month-old child suffered a fatal head injury at the child's home, located along the 14,200 block of Barolo Way in Beaumont, California. The babysitter, identified as Heather Greenman of Riverside, reported the child had fallen while running and was transported to a local hospital for swelling on the head and bleeding on the brain. The child subsequently died from the injuries at hospital. Authorities were able to identify a second victim, a 2-year-old child who had suffered from serious injuries while in Heather's care, but were not previously reported. The child was also being cared for in the family's home in Beaumont, but was not hospitalized. On Thursday the 29th of June, Heather was taken into custody and booked into the Smith Correctional Facility on suspicion of first-degree murder, willful harm and assault resulting in death. She remains held on a $1 million bond. A man rejected by his former girlfriend bound her with tape and cable ties before burying her alive in an act of revenge. 22-year-old Jaraktot Singh pleaded guilty to the murder of 21-year-old nursing student Jasmine Kaur early this year in February. In sentencing submissions in the South Australian Supreme Court on Wednesday the 5th of July 2023, the court heard that Jaraktot planned the killing because he is unable to get over the breakdown of their relationship. In March of 2021, Jaraktot stalked Jasmine and then abducted her from her aged care workplace in North Plympton, Adelaide. He bound her feet and hands behind her back with a cable tie and tape, and she was put into the back of a car he borrowed from a friend. He then drove over 400 kilometres, or roughly 250 miles, to Morolana Creek in South Australia's Flinders Ranges area. He made superficial cuts to Jasmine's neck, before placing her in a shallow grave and burying her alive with her hands and feet still bound together. The court heard Jasmine had inhaled and swallowed soil. Jaraktot initially denied the killing, claiming that he buried her body after she took her own life, but later pleaded guilty to murder before he was due to stand trial early this year. He was caught on CCTV hours before the murder at Bunnings in Mile End buying gloves, cable ties and a shovel. He faces a mandatory life sentence, with the court to impose a non-parole period next month. A 32-year-old woman is behind bars and is accused of stabbing her elderly grandparents. At 3:44 a.m. on Tuesday the 4th of July, authorities responded to a home at 702 Burgin Street in Thomasville, North Carolina on reports of a disturbance. When officers arrived at the scene, they found a 73-year-old woman and a disabled 75-year-old man suffering from multiple stab wounds. The victims are reportedly married. The two victims were rushed to Atrium Health Wake Forest Baptist in a stable condition. Police identified Kristen Billings, the victim's granddaughter, as the suspect. Authorities said she hid her grandparents' cell phone before fleeing the scene on foot, and she was wanted by police. Police announced that Kristen is homeless and have asked anyone with information of her whereabouts to come forward. On the morning of the 6th of July, a customer at a Sheets gas station on South Main Street in Archdale, roughly 6 miles away from the crime scene, recognised her at the business. A witness contacted employees who then alerted law enforcement. Archdale officers responded, but Kristen had already left the scene by soliciting a ride from an unwilling person. At 8:44 a.m. that morning, officers located the vehicle and arrested Kristen. Kristen was transported to the Thomasville Police Department for processing. She is charged with 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, inflicting serious bodily injury, and 1 count of interfering with 911 communication. She's held at the Davidson County Jail on a $500,000 bond. Dwayne Lenny lives in the neighbourhood and was familiar with the elderly couple. He said Kristen didn't live at the home, and the couple was just trying to help their granddaughter through a rough time. I think the worst part of it is she didn't just do something to them, it's affected the whole family, he said. Her life is forever altered, and she's forever altered her relationship with everyone in her family because of what she did. The motive in the attack is unclear, as the investigation into the matter continues. A 27-year-old man is behind bars after he fatally beat his 56-year-old uncle with a dumbbell weight and hid his body in a closet. At just before 1 p.m. on Tuesday the 27th of June, authorities responded to a home in the 4400 block of Vegas Valley Drive in Las Vegas, Nevada on report of a physical altercation. When officers arrived, they found an unresponsive man suffering from visible injuries. Medical personnel pronounced the man dead at the scene. Detectives identified the victim's nephew, Jorge Patel, as the primary suspect, alleging he battered the victim earlier in the day in what police described as an unprovoked attack. Prior to the beating death, Jorge's mother got a call from the victim, Leonelle Blandon, claiming her son was acting out of control and throwing chairs and various items at him. Jorge's mother left work to go home to defuse the situation. When she arrived, she found blood on the floor and wall inside the trailer, which Jorge was cleaning up. When she asked her son where Leonelle was, he refused to tell her. The mother then exited the home and called 911. Police arrived and they found blood on the carpet, walls, doors, and on a doorbell that had been ripped out of the wall. Jorge was found on his knees next to a bloody towel with his hands behind his back. An officer asked Jorge what was going on, to which he replied following the rules of engagement. "I'm going to cut the bullshit," he said. "He's in my closet dead." Leonelle's unresponsive body was found in the closet, which had been barricaded with a glass table and other objects. A 10-pound dumbbell weight was found with blood on it, along with drag marks in the bedroom. Leonelle had multiple contusions and abrasions to his head and broken teeth. In an interview with police, Jorge's mother told them that her brother Leonelle was homeless a week or 2 earlier, and she allowed him to live with her temporarily until he got on his feet. She described her brother as very mellow, and said he had recently been hired at a McDonald's on Boulder Highway. When talking about Jorge, she said her son had struggled with drugs since he was 14 years old, and sold marijuana in high school. She said her son had a child with a woman he allegedly abused. She also said he has an undisclosed medical condition for which he wasn't taking medication. Jorge's mother agreed to let her son live with her as long as he didn't do anything crazy, break things or get physical with her. She said Jorge had been mentally wasted and talked crazy about the FBI and the government. Jorge told detectives that he acted in self-defense. He said his uncle wasn't actually his uncle, and that he was engaging in genocide and multiple murders with the military and the US president. Jorge said he hit Leonelle, then followed him into a bedroom. The two fought, and at one point Leonelle got out into a hallway, but Jorge caught up with him, took him down and didn't allow him to leave. Jorge said that he then picked up a 10-pound dumbbell weight and hit Leonelle 10 to 15 times in the head and smashed his skull in. After killing his uncle, he then dragged his body to the guest bedroom and stuffed it into a closet before blocking it off with furniture. He said he felt guilty that he had not killed Leonelle sooner to prevent more deaths. Police arrested Jorge and charged him with open murder with a deadly weapon and first-degree kidnapping. He remains held at the Clark County Detention Center without bond. 30-year-old Melissa Rollinson is behind bars for fatally shooting 36-year-old Emmanuel Manzano. At 6:45 p.m. on Tuesday the 4th of July, authorities responded to a residence at 1204 Breezy Valley Drive in Cordova, Tennessee on a call of a domestic disturbance. When officers arrived at the scene, they found Emmanuel laying on the garage floor with a gunshot wound to his chest. He was transported to Regional 1 Hospital in a critical condition, where he died from his injuries. Detectives identified Melissa as a suspect. Authorities said that minutes before the shooting, Melissa called police to tell them that she and Emmanuel had got into a domestic dispute while driving to the home. The relationship between the victim and the suspect has not been disclosed, and it's unclear what the argument was about. Melissa was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, and is held at the Shelby County Jail. The investigation into the matter continues. An 86-year-old man is behind bars for fatally shooting his 79-year-old wife. At 5:47 p.m. on Tuesday the 4th of July, authorities responded to the Portofino Senior Apartments at 1001 Las Palmas Entrada in Henderson, Nevada, on a report of a woman down. When officers arrived, they went inside the home and found a 79-year-old woman suffering from a gunshot wound, and she was transported to a local hospital where she died from her injuries. Investigators said that Jerome Seligman called police and admitted he shot his wife, Susan Toby. Officers recovered a handgun in a holster on the floor of the kitchen. During an interview with police, Jerome said he shot his wife in the shoulder. He told officers, "I'm really depressed. I didn't want to do it, but it got to a point, and if you ever saw her room, you would know why I got that depressed." Jerome was arrested and charged with open murder with a deadly weapon. He's held at the Henderson Detention Center without bail. He's set to appear in court on Monday the 10th of July. In a separate incident in 2018, Jerome was arrested after he aimed a gun at another person. He pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor assault. The case was dismissed and he paid a fine of $1,000. A 22-year-old man is behind bars for severely assaulting 3 children. On Monday the 3rd of July, authorities responded to a home at 628 Main Street in Pape, Mississippi, and found several children suffering from apparent abuse. Deputies from the Panola County Sheriff's Office identified Dalton Melton as a suspect and began searching for him. Information was developed that Dalton was attempting to leave the area, so they located the vehicle he was traveling in and conducted a traffic stop. He was arrested on 2 counts of felony child abuse and 1 count of domestic violence aggravated assault. The children's mother said that Dalton told her that he destroyed the house, but I wouldn't be worried about the house. You need to worry about the kids' faces being busted in. Dalton allegedly kicked a 6-year-old son with steel boots and threw a stove at him. A 14-year-old child reportedly sustained a broken nose and a split lip, while a 3-year-old was hit with a phone. Dalton is on probation from the Mississippi Department of Corrections, and he's currently being held without bond at the Panola County Detention Center. Sheriff Shane Phelps said, "We're going to do everything here in the sheriff's office to make sure he'll never hurt another kid again." The investigation into the matter continues. Gregory Cole is behind bars for fatally stabbing his grandmother. At 9:13 a.m. on Monday the 3rd of July, authorities responded to a residence along the 4200 block of Rosewind Circle, Memphis, Tennessee, where a man said he killed his grandmother. Gregory was found sitting in the dining area with a bloody knife on the table, which he told police he used. His grandmother was laying on her back covered in blood in the kitchen area. She died from her injuries, which included numerous stab wounds to the neck and cheek area. Gregory admitted to police that he stabbed his grandmother numerous times and that it was his best option. Gregory was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and is held at the Shelby County Jail. The motive in the attack is unclear as the investigation into the matter continues. On Monday the 3rd of July, 55-year-old Rosa Backer was found guilty of fatally beating her 38-year-old boyfriend with a hammer in 2018. At around 8:15 a.m. on the 17th of December 2018, police and medics responded to a trailer at the back of a property at 277 South Indiana Street in Porterville, California, on a report of a man in need of medical help. When first responders arrived, Rose's 38-year-old boyfriend Jose Magana was transported to a local hospital by ambulance for critical injuries and had to be put on life support. Police said his injuries were consistent with being assaulted with a blunt object. Rosa told officials she got into an argument with her boyfriend the night before. She told them that he left the home and returned early in the morning shirtless with no shoes and had sustained apparent injuries. Investigators said he had clean feet despite being shoeless, and there was no blood or signs of a struggle. Rosa told police she had not driven anywhere during the rainy night or morning. However, officers noticed Rosa's car was warm to touch, indicating that it had been recently driven, and mud tracks from the vehicle were evident. While questioned, Rosa eventually admitted she had kicked the victim, beat him with a hammer, and driven his and her clothes to a dumpster. Nearby video surveillance confirmed the car making multiple trips away from the residence during the call for help. The victim died the next day at a local hospital. At trial, the jury convicted Rosa of first-degree murder with a special circumstance that she inflicted torture and the special allegation that she used a deadly weapon. Sentencing is scheduled for the 31st of July, where Rosa faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. A 3-year-old boy died early Friday after accidentally shot himself in the head. The Jefferson County Coroner's Office identified the boy as Caden Goldman. At 12:55 a.m. on the 30th of June, authorities responded to a residence in the Forest Hills Village Apartments complex at 2615 Tempest Drive Southwest in Birmingham, Alabama, on a report that a child had been shot. When medics arrived, they found an unresponsive boy inside the premises with a gunshot wound. He was transported to the Children's of Alabama Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 1:55 a.m. Authorities said it appears that the child was in the care of an adult and left the boy in the room by himself for a moment when he got hold of a gun and accidentally shot himself. Birmingham police are investigating. Caden's mother, Adriana Jones, said she is devastated by his death. She described Caden as smart and intelligent. He loved the idea that when he was old enough that he wanted to play soccer, she said. He liked going to the park and had a crazy obsession for dinosaurs. Adriana said Caden was a big brother to his sister Kaylee and an excellent son. He loved fruit and vegetables and he loved to dance. My baby was so independent and he knew exactly what he wanted, Adriana said. He was a good child. No, he was an excellent child. To know him is to love him. He was an amazing person, she said. A 65-year-old woman is behind bars after she fatally stabbed her adult daughter. And just before midnight on Monday the 26th of June, authorities went to 2527 Keene Road in Memphis, Tennessee after receiving a suspicious person call. When officers arrived, they found an unresponsive woman in the driveway covered in blood with multiple stab wounds and a trail of blood leading from the carport door to the street. Paramedics pronounced the victim, 50-year-old Conju Garrett, dead at 12:22 a.m. Authorities said that Conju lived with a disability and could not walk. Investigators spoke with Conju's mother, Carolyn Garrett, and told them that she killed an alien who was trying to take her children. Carolyn's 27-year-old son, Kenyatta Townsend, told police that she told him that she killed the devil. Police arrested Carolyn, and while speaking with investigators, she said she heard some voices coming from the wall telling her to kill her daughter. Carolyn retrieved a knife from the kitchen and started cutting Conju on the back of her neck and back area. She then dragged her from the street and left her on the curb. Carolyn then cleaned up the blood inside the home and left the towels and sheets she used outside. Carolyn is charged with first-degree murder, and she's held at the Shelby County Jail on a $500,000 bond, and a mental evaluation has been ordered. The investigation into the matter continues. A 36-year-old man is behind bars on suspicion of fatally beating and stabbing his 64-year-old mother. At 9:13 p.m. on Sunday the 11th of June, authorities responded to an apartment at 3725 Northeast 169th Street in North Miami Beach, Florida, where they found Connie Questa deceased. At the scene, officers met with the victim's spouse and the victim's son, Sean Questa, who were outside the home. The victim's husband told officers he discovered his wife unconscious on the bedroom floor with no shirt and her pants lowered to her knees, and she was cold to touch. The spouse called a family friend, who went to the home and also saw Connie Questa's body. A neighbour told police that from around 10 a.m. on the 11th of June until early evening, he heard loud banging and yelling coming from their family's apartment. He said the neighbour alerted the victim's spouse about the noises and called law enforcement. On the 12th of June, police interviewed Sean, noticing visible scratches on his arms and a laceration to his forehead. Sean told officers that he lived with his mother on and off for many years, and he'd been staying with her for the past several weeks. He said that he was with his mother all day on the 11th of June and left sometime between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. to buy food. Police allege, however, that Sean and his mother got into an argument that eventually turned physical. Police said that Sean threw items inside the apartment before severely striking his mother in the head, face and body with multiple blunt objects, including empty wine bottles that were found by the victim's body. Police noted that one of the empty wine bottles had a towel wrapped around the neck, which ultimately resulted in the victim's death. After hitting his mother, authorities said that Sean used a knife to stab her 4 times in the left temple. Police recovered the knife, which was found in Sean's backpack. The victim's extensive injuries caused her to bleed extensively on the floors of the living room and master bedroom. Sean then tried to clean up the blood with a towel and a rag before he showered and fled the scene. The medical examiner determined that Connie died from internal bleeding resulting from internal organs being lacerated from blunt force trauma. Following his interview with police, Sean reportedly went to his aunt's house. Police said his aunt became concerned about his behaviour and called police, who transported Sean to Citrus Health Facility. On the 16th of June, police said Sean's aunt went to the North Miami Beach Police Department station and told investigators that on the 12th of June, Sean called her from a gas station landline and said, "I killed my mother." Sean was released from the health facility on the 16th of June, and Sean later turned himself into police at just before 11 a.m. on Thursday the 29th of June. Sean was booked into the Miami-Dade County Jail on charges of second-degree murder, battery by strangulation and aggravated battery. He remains held without bond. Authorities said that at the time Sean was taken into custody, he was already in probation for domestic and aggravated battery for a separate incident. The investigation into the matter continues. Authorities are investigating after a 34-year-old man was fatally shot during an altercation. At just before 1 a.m. on Thursday the 29th of June, police responded to a home in the 200 block of South Minnesota Avenue in Wichita, Kansas on reports of a disturbance. When officers arrived, they found Nicholas Hardcastle critically injured inside the premises with a gunshot wound, and the shooter was still at the scene. Nicholas was rushed to a local hospital but died a short time later. Wichita Police Department said that two friends who were both armed got into a verbal dispute, which led to a physical altercation and a shot was fired. Police have indicated that alcohol was involved. During questioning, investigators said that a person admitted to the shooting but claimed self-defense. Authorities have not released the shooter's name or indicated what the argument was about. Police are still investigating the matter and will present the case to the District Attorney's Office to determine whether charges will be filed. A 32-year-old man is behind bars after police stopped an attempted murder-suicide of the man and his son. On the 23rd of June, authorities responded to a home in the 9800 block of Copperhead Lane in McKinney, Texas, near Black Bear Drive, after police said that Kendall Thigpeg Watsons made threats to hang himself and his 8-year-old son. When officers arrived, they found Kendall and the boy hanging from a staircase baluster. The officers immediately cut the rope and provided medical attention to the father and son, before transporting them to a local hospital. The boy was later released. Kendall was arrested and charged with attempted capital murder, and is held at the Collin County Jail with his bail set at $300,000. Authorities are investigating after a 32-year-old man was found fatally shot. At around 1:35 a.m. on Friday the 30th of June, authorities responded to the 1000 block of Quebec Place in the Petworth neighbourhood of Washington, D.C. on reports of shots fired. When officers arrived at the scene, they found a victim unresponsive with gunshot wounds to the upper body. The man was pronounced dead at the scene. He was identified as Tymir Roberts. No suspects or motives have been identified, as investigation into the matter continues. A 20-year-old man is behind bars after he fatally ran over a 73-year-old woman with a forklift before stealing a car. At 12:40 a.m. on Sunday the 2nd of July, authorities initially responded to a Lowe's improvement store at 2525 Crane Highway in Waldorf, Maryland, on a report of a burglar in progress. According to witnesses, the suspect, later identified as Bryce Caleb Timothy Brown, broke into the business, stole a forklift and fled the scene by ramming through the rear gates. Officers canvassed the area and later found a forklift in the parking lot of a nearby the Home Depot store, less than half a mile down the road at 12050 Jefferson Farm Place. However, the suspect was nowhere to be found. Officers then found a deceased female underneath the forklift. The victim was identified as Gloristine Pinkney. During the investigation, detectives determined that Gloristine was asleep in a dark copper-coloured 2019 Ford Fusion in the Home Depot store parking lot when Bryce crashed the forklift into the side of the vehicle. Gloristine then got out of a car and began to run away, but Bryce followed her in the forklift, ran her over before fleeing the scene in her car. Authorities believe that Gloristine was living in the car, and that Bryce and Gloristine did not know each other when she was killed. Later that evening, Gloristine's car was found near Bryce's home with damage to the passenger side and a missing side mirror. Bryce was arrested that night and charged with first-degree and second-degree murder, assault, theft and other related charges. He's held at the Charles County Detention Center without bond. A babysitter was arrested after 3 children in her care became unconscious after she introduced them to snorting pills at her residence. The babysitter, identified as 24-year-old Deanna Nicole Bird, reportedly offered pills to the children, a 15-year-old girl and 2 boys aged 8 and 9, and demonstrated how to snort them using a rolled-up ramen noodle cup lid. At around 5:20 p.m. on Wednesday the 28th of June, Jessica Nervig arrived at Deanna's residence in the 100 block of Old House Avenue in Evansville, Indiana to collect her 3 children, and noticed Deanna seemed impaired on the porch. Worried that she couldn't find her children, Jessica rushed inside the home and found her daughter unconscious on Deanna's bed, and her sons unresponsive on the couch. Jessica called 911 requesting medical assistance for her 3 children. When Jessica confronted Deanna and told her that she called 911, Deanna said she wasn't going to jail for no kids. Medics arrived and revived the 2 boys. When they regained consciousness, both kids were stumbling and falling when trying to get into the ambulance. The girl was unconscious when she was put into an ambulance. One of the young children told an officer that Deanna, their babysitter, had given them some of her pills. Upon regaining consciousness in the hospital, the girl told investigators that Deanna had provided them with pills, including Adderall, Klonopin and Lyrica just after midnight. She said Deanna showed them how to break open the orange pill capsules and make lines with them to snort. The girl said that Deanna showed them how to snort the pills using a rolled-up ramen noodle cup lid. She said her and her brothers took about 3 to 4 of each of the 3 different pills Deanna had given them. While interviewed by police, Deanna claimed that the 3 children, one of them who she refers to as an asshole, must have gotten into her pills on their own, saying that she never gave them anything. She added that the children liked to snoop when given free rein at her home. She also denied that either of the 2 young children were ever unconscious. At Deanna's home, detectives found a prescription bottle of Adderall and Klonopin. While she was being booked into the Vanderburgh County Jail, police found a half-filled prescription bottle for Lyrica in Deanna's purse, which had orange capsules that matched the broken ones found at the home. The pills and capsules were reportedly prescribed to individuals other than herself. Deanna has been charged with 3 counts of neglect of a dependent resulting in serious bodily injury, as well as drug possession and theft. Her bail's been set at $20,000, and she's been instructed not to have any contact with the 3 children. The investigation into the matter continues. 21-year-old Kendaris Jaquan Cole is behind bars for fatally shooting 18-year-old Madresha Stovall over the weekend. At 12:43 p.m. on Saturday the 1st of July, authorities responded to the 2200 block of Eastern Boulevard in Montgomery, Alabama, on reports that a woman had been shot in a vehicle. When officers arrived, they found the woman unresponsive with a gunshot wound and was pronounced dead at the scene. Upon further investigation, authorities identified Kendaris as a suspect in the shooting. At 4:15 p.m. on Monday the 3rd of July, Kendaris was arrested and booked into the Montgomery County Detention Center without bond. He's charged with capital murder because Madresha was in the vehicle when she was fatally shot from the outside. A motive in the shooting has not been released. Kendaris was already out of jail and bond on a separate incident of discharging a firearm into an occupied building less than 2 miles down the road from where Madresha was shot. He was arrested on the 16th of June for firing shots into the Murphy USA gas station on Eastern Boulevard, while employees and patrons were inside. The investigation into the matter continues. A homeless man is behind bars after he spat on a police officer and headbutted another after stealing gas station sandwiches. At around 8:20 a.m. on Sunday the 2nd of July, authorities responded to the Shell gas station at 1492 South Dixie Highway in Coral Gables, Florida, to a call about a man who had stolen several items from the convenience store and battered an employee. Investigators learned that 31-year-old Andreas Ramanegrin had eaten 2 sandwiches, totaling $20 inside the store before leaving without paying for them. Police said he returned a short time later and grabbed an energy drink before getting into an argument with a store employee. During the confrontation, Andreas slammed the drink down and punched the victim in the back of the head. After leaving the store again, he was quickly stopped by an officer and was taken into custody. While placing Andreas into the back of the patrol car, he spat on one of the officers 3 times and elbowed him twice before headbutting another officer. Andreas is charged with battery on a police officer, battery, theft and probation violation. He's held at the Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Centre on a $12,000 bond.